Well, I'm figuring, I didn't plan, but I figured as I was reading through material and watching some graphs and seeing the catastrophe that is Satama and inexplicable drops there. And then, of course, Libero's stable as I expected, and Titano's actually coming back up. Safu's still climbing, and people are asking me to do a follow up, and I'm purposely not doing it because I think more time needs to pass. Safuu just launched, I think, what, a week ago? It needs more time. So just to refresh on where we are with all of these various ones, Libero, I said it's doing what they told me, and it is because it's been stable and its price movement's been stable, and people are buying back in after taking profits. Titano has been stable. Looks like they did the new contract and it's been stable in the new contract. I will follow on and do a review of Titano at some point just to give it a fair shot. If the new contract's out, I want to assess it under the new contract because now we won't hopefully have the devs jumping in there, blocking out whales because they don't like the sells. And as far as Safuu, I'm going to give that more time because, again, the pattern I said is people are going to FOMO in, the price is going to climb to unreasonable levels. At some point, it's going to plateau, and then it's going to start dropping because the price is too high for people to buy in. We're not at the point of the plateau yet. That's otherwise referred to as consolidation. Once we start seeing people start selling for profit, that's the point that I'll start reviewing Safuu to see if there's something there. I don't really care about things like audits and that because at the end of the day, it's more about the sustainability because that was my summary. Is it a sustainable project? From what I can see, Libero appears to be a sustainable project today. That could change and it could be wrong. Titano, under the new contract, might be sustainable, but we don't know. We have to watch it over some time. And then Safuu, we need to give it a little bit more time than a week or whatever to really assess how it's going to go. But reviewing all these got me thinking. I haven't talked about the drip token in a long time. I did drip coverage quite a while ago, and people attacked me, rightfully. They felt that I was not fair to the project. And all I ultimately said about drip is that it felt scummy, shady, a little bit sleazy. It didn't feel like it was something I should be confident in just based on what I saw, locking you out of your assets and all that kind of stuff. And people seem to think that, no, there's something there and it's not a Ponzi scheme. It's not a pyramid scheme. It's all on the level. It's all legit. And it's going to make me rich. Do. And if they felt that way, that's cool. I personally was not going to buy into it, and I recommended, take a look at it, but I don't recommend that you buy into it. As of February, mid-February to be exact, it looks like people are pretty much done with drip. Now, according to the documentation for drip, we shouldn't be able to see excessive sell-offs, but that's exactly what we're seeing because drip tanked. It got as high as $170 per token. Dropped all the way down to $70.67 exactly, but $70-ish per token. Currently on a strong bear cycle, very strong one. And we can't blame the war necessarily because, as I said, in February, it was still climbing and still jumping. These are all sells. This is not a loss of volume. There's still high volume on it. This is sells. This is people selling off. There was close to 40,000 holders in drip as of last count. So I suspect that people are just taking profits out of it now that they can. And this is what I was saying is that in order to sustain the volume and the level of velocity that we were alleging in the docs, you'd have to do the pyramid scheme because the problem is if you don't keep recruiting more people into this thing and people sell, it hurts the whole pyramid. That's why I said it looks like a pyramid scheme because it didn't look like it was able to stabilize its value unless you did the pyramid scheme. That's the point. So with that, I didn't personally buy into drip and I didn't recommend people do so. If they felt like they were going to do it, that's up to them, but I was not going to do that. For my opinion, I was not going to do that. So that's drip. It's on a steep decline, whereas everything else looks like it's on a climb of the ones that are kind of in this category of so-called finance and finance as a service and staking as a service and farming as a service, etc. Drip looks like it's the only one that is steeply down as it stands. Now with that, I felt bad with all these folks on drip, specifically drip, but all these folks on drip and probably some people on Satama, but I felt bad because there's a lot of money being lost with a lot of these tokens that are crapping out. And I want to try to help you get at least a little bit of your money back. Now, if you went in for like $10,000 or $5,000, I can't help you in the short term. However, in the long term, I might have a plan for you if you're open to it. And you are one of those that says, you know what, Leicester was right. He told us this was going to crash. We didn't listen to him. We're going to give him his credit. So now we're listening, Leicester. If you're listening to me, I want to help you, because that's what I do. I want to help people. I'm not here to say neener, neener, neener like some of you guys. I want to help you get back to a level. So I do the coverage where I talk about these things because I don't want you to be taken for a ride. I don't want these tokens that look sketchy taking your money. If you invested just a little bit in there, maybe less than $500, let's say, okay, you're not out too much. But if you invested a couple thousands of dollars, it's going to be hard for you to recoup that. Now, maybe it's just like throwaway money and you don't care. But for some of you, maybe that's not throwaway money. Maybe you decided to kind of YOLO into it, or you dumped more into it than you planned to. This is where I want to help you. So just the other day, I was talking to somebody and I stumbled across this person had struck up a conversation, and he wrote a book, and this book's about a great way to get some spare cash, and this will help you recoup what you just lost with your drip and your Satama and all these other ones that are kind of crapping out. It'll help you recoup some of that money with something very easy. It involves scrap metal recycling. If you didn't know, scrap metal is all around you, not even in your house, but in the yard sales or something else. And with this, you can make a lot of cash with this, up to close to $3,000 a month. So if this is sounding like it's something you're interested in, I want to recommend this book for you. Even if you already have a job, I think it's something where you can recoup some of your cash. If you take a look at this book, I strongly recommend it. It's called How to Make Cash Today with Scrap Metal Recycling. It's available on Amazon.com as an ebook. I strongly encourage you to take a look at this book. If you get into this, it'll help you get back some of this cash that you've lost. Now, of course, the caveat is you have to kind of trust me. You didn't trust me the first time when you took the loss. You bought in when I told you not to. That's okay. I'm here to help. I strongly recommend take a look at the book, How to Make Cash Today with Scrap Metal Recycling, on Amazon, on Audible as a Kindle book. Get that. Take a look at it. I assure you, everybody's got this scrap metal around, and it's a great way to make some of this money back that you've lost YOLOing into these various projects. Now, on a flip side, some of these other projects like Kishimoto, Shirio, you've heard me talk about how NFTs kind of got in their way and they've kind of harmed these projects. Kishimoto's on a little bit of a rise. Shirio's on a little bit of a rise. So some of these are a little bit of a rise, but that's because we're seeing some of the revival of BNB and Ethereum, less so Ethereum, more so BNB, in terms of the core token prices. And then some of these tokens that are backed by something other than just BNB, like if they're backed by Cake or they're backed by BUSD or they're backed by SHIB even, they're able to stabilize those liquidity pools a little bit better than some of the other ones. So this goes to the whole diversity of portfolio, having multiple different projects rather than just YOLOing into any one project. Having multiple of them helps insulate you from the drips of the world that are just dripping money out of your wallet. Again, I'm not here to tell you that you did anything wrong. I'm saying that when I do this kind of coverage, I do it because I'm looking out for you. At the end of the day, I'm trying to advise what I see as risks and what I see as concerns. I could always get it wrong, but chances are, if they're concerns to me, they're concerns to somebody else, and that means that they would sell. So even if you didn't believe me for the purposes of buying in, you have to look at the sales trend of drip in particular, but also other ones, as an indicator that kind of the sentiment is shifting. We're seeing people buy into different projects than what they did before. We're seeing more people get back into the core, back into the Bitcoins of the world, and less in some of these altcoins unless you have something really compelling. We also see that the passive income and those kind of sources of recurrent income are taking a front center approach versus what we saw before. This is why I covered the whole Making Cash with Scrap Metal Recycling book, because that's an opportunity to make some income, passive income, in something that's very simple, and it's actually very low risk. Now, it's competitive because other people are aware of it, but if you're in an area where you don't have very many people that know about it, you can kind of get in on the front level and make a lot of money doing it. So check that book out. I will have the link also in the notes in the description here on YouTube, so if you want to take a look at that one, I implore you to do so, especially if you lost the money, but even if you didn't lose money. Let's say you want more money to throw up more projects. Take a look at that, see if that makes sense for you. And I will check in with you guys tomorrow on our full podcast episode, where I will be back with another underdog token. I'm also going to have another YouTube episode that's probably going to be on Wednesday by my guess. And that one's going to cover a token we covered on the main show that the YouTube side didn't get to hear. So hopefully you get to take a look at that one. And again, if you're buying into projects right now, it's a sketchy time, but the sentiment is changing. That's the most important takeaway. People's sentiments are changing. They're getting a little bit smarter, just a little bit, about the projects they buy into. We no longer can really just trust that it's renounced, or trust that there's an audit, or trust that there's this or that. There's a lot more to think about. And the one constant, I think, is what's the utility of this thing? What can I use it for? How can it benefit me as an investor? And if we don't have those core fundamentals, those are the tokens that don't really last. And the tokens that just make all these rapid changes, and they're doing a bunch of migrations, or they're doing supply constraining, or doing all these random things, all that change, all that disruption just creates increased risk. And I think a lot of people are getting tired of that as well. So as you see more of these projects that are just shifting and changing and shifting and changing because they didn't get it right up front, I think people are getting tired of it, and they're moving their money elsewhere, which is really back to the fundamental tokens. On a final note, I do think that alternate networks such as PulseX and Pulse Chain, of course, being the network, I think that one's going to have some disruption. Not because it's trying to replace anything, but because of its purpose that it's stated, which is it's trying to be a parallel to what Ethereum was at some point in time. And it's trying to offload some of the traffic from Ethereum, which in theory, if it's done right, and it's very ambitious, but if it's done right, will help lower gas prices for the Ethereum side. Now, of course, NFTs will throw a wrench in that plan. So we don't know exactly how strong or how good this is going to be. I will tell you this, though. With what I see in Pulse Chain, there are a lot of unanswered questions. The plan is to have a parallel of the number of tokens you have on the Ethereum side. Whatever you have in whatever wallets on the Ethereum side, you would have an equivalent number of those tokens on the Pulse Chain. The problem is, how do you account for all these wallets that have like dust amounts? How do you account for all these wallets that have tokens that were abandoned because they migrated to a new token, and you still have the old tokens and they're worthless? Like, there's all these unanswered questions yet to be discovered, solutions for how we deal with all these different types of tokens. Could you imagine, though, if we had tokens, let's take Hold, HODL 2.0, and all the jackups they did, right? And people have HODL stuck in their wallet because they screwed up the migration like twice. And so now this Pulse Chain comes along, and you got to hold, millions and millions or billions and billions of HODL, or say with Para, same thing. And you got all these tokens here. Is it possible that they create value because somebody wants them? And if it's true that the contract level's locked, that means you shouldn't be able to trade them. But what if it doesn't lock it? What if they're open? What if you can trade them? You could be able to recoup some of your money that way. It's a very interesting thing. So if you're not into Pulse Chain, I do recommend you look at that as well, because that's going to change the game with the Ethereum type tokens whenever that decides to come out. And it sounds like we're very close to that one coming out. Take a look at that. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you as far as things like drip, except that, be careful with these tokens that make lofty promises, and it looks straight on the surface like it's a pyramid scheme in order to make the money, because chances are it probably is. That's why I stay very skeptical about Safuu. I've never said don't do it. I said I'm skeptical of it because I don't think it's sustainable. Because a lot of these that just make lofty promises, it's hard for me to support until I see them proven out. That's my summary thoughts on that matter. The last point before I wrap up, Terareum. So I don't know if anybody saw this on social media, but I did a coverage on Terareum. Terareum they lied a little bit. They claimed that, they had this document out here since the beginning of February. That's a lie. But they did update, I think they meant the beginning of March, but they did update the white paper. It's actually a white paper. It's actually a PDF. Great. And inside in the terms, they now have a term. Somebody was listening to my show because they said, hey, look, if you're in a country that this could be treated as a security, you're not allowed to trade this. I know that sounds weird, but it's true, because like Binance.com, anytime that it's a United States customer, Binance.com will let you do it because of that same risk. That's why I call that out as a risk, because it's like you can't tell people it's not an investment. That's exactly what it is. And they're going to come after you if something goes wrong. If you're found to be defrauding people, they can come after you. You can't tell me you can't come after, or I can't come after you. I can come after you if you cheat me. And so somebody clearly listened to mine, and somebody clearly listened to Logic and Reason, because they've updated the terms. They've now said, if you're in the United States, or I think they said China was the other one, then you're not going to be trading this, and they're going to do KYC. I'm cool with that. I'm perfectly cool with it because I had no intention of buying it. Anybody who's an American who did buy into it, one of two things will happen. Either they'll let you keep it to duration because they let you buy it, or they'll force you to sell. I suspect they'll just let you keep it and just deal with it. But if I've screwed anybody who's in the United States, I apologize, but I'm trying to look out for you guys because at the end of the day, they can't tell you that they can just cheat you or fraud you and just get away with it and just say, deal with it, do. That's not right. It's not fair. It's not going to happen on any watch. Like, even if I hadn't gotten involved, somebody could have sued them and it'd have been even worse. At least now you have some coverage that says, okay, as of a point in time, and I gave you the screenshot, and that's going to be your backing. When you bought this thing, they said, hey, we don't have to give you liquidity, and we don't have to give you any value, and we don't have to do nothing for you. Do. And then you can contrast that with a PDF, which is why I like PDFs. You can now show, well, they tried to be slick with it, like Zab Judah. They tried to be slick here and tried to change the verbiage, but now you're protected. Because at the end of the day, you bought in under a certain auspice, which is they told me it wasn't going to have any value, but then later they said it could have value, but they're not going to trade with me, but they traded with me. So that's Terareum. I will do coverage with them. Probably, I'm not going to do it tomorrow because I got a headache, but probably Thursday's episode, maybe. I'll think about it. I will cover Terareum so that people are happy. I know some people were very upset that I wasn't going to cover it because of FOMO. They see it, they're seeing that graph, they're seeing whatever. And a lot of people are kind of shilling it on social media, and I understand. Again, that line really bothered me. I can't express to you. And if you take nothing else away, take away the fact that they changed it as evidence of what I was saying is true, and that's the point. I'm not wrong. Like, you can't tell somebody it's not an investment. This is an investment. That's what it is. If there's something backing it, it could be treated as a security, and we got to all be careful. And I'm trying to look out for folks. So that's all I got for you folks. I am going to be back with you with the full podcast episode tomorrow if you're subscribed to the podcast. Also, we're making some small changes. Our logo is slightly changing. You won't see very much changing. The domain's the same, cryptotalkradio.net, where you can find our podcast. The difference there is that cryptotalkradio.net in the future is going to take you to just the basic cryptonomics sections of information. So it'll be easy to find our various podcasts. You'll also be able to sign up as a supporter. That's a new feature that I've just introduced. All that means is that if you want to kind of toss me some money to help me out, you are free to do so. I'm going to mention it. I'm not going to push it. I'll just mention it's there if anybody wants to support. Think of it very similar as what YouTube's thing does. And that's the next update, is that at some point in the near future, probably in April, I'm guessing, I've got some other personal things going. At some point in the near future, I will be doing the live stream function on YouTube. You will not see my face, likely. I haven't decided that yet, but there will be the live stream function on YouTube. Now, what I got to decide is what content I think is most worth your time in a live stream setting. And of course, in the YouTube space, if you're on YouTube and you have that function set up, you can then provide the supporter, the tips through that function as well. So that's coming here in the near future. I haven't decided the content yet. That's why I haven't launched it yet. The room is open, not open, but it's available. It's created, but I haven't used it yet because I have to figure out what content. I have to figure out how I can keep your attention the best without wasting your time for an hour-ish, possibly less, but probably about an hour, because I don't want to waste your time either. This would probably be an evening thing, so I got to figure out scheduling. There's a lot of nuts and bolts and moving parts and pieces if I'm going to go that route. And so I haven't decided or committed, because I know there's a lot of people doing it, Crypto Journeys and Bleaves and, Hinnock and so many others. I don't want to provide redundant information. I don't want to provide contradictory information. I don't want to bore you for an hour. It's got to make sense if I'm going to do it. I'll tell you this much, since you're hearing this, if you have suggestions on the kind of content that you would like to hear on a live version of this show, cryptotalkradio.net, fill out the form for comments, questions, feedback, and provide suggestions. I read all of them. I'm open. I'm a people's type of podcaster. So that's what I got for you folks. I will check in with you tomorrow for the full episode, as well as our episode that we did on a recent token. And then later on, we will go back and we will cover Terareum to the absolute satisfaction of a few people out there.